there been conversation yet with the front office?
No. There hasn't been any, but there hasn't been any talks yet.
Would you look at it as a situation where you'd want to see the organization do some things?
When I go to the mall and I go to the Dior store and I want something, I get it. I ask how much it costs and I buy it. I'm the product here, and if they want my product, you just gotta come get it.
Well, okay, after listening to that, it sounds like Carlos Correa is going to be opting out of that contract and testing free agency once again. If you go back to last offseason, he ended up signing a 3-year deal with the Minnesota Twins, which at the time I'm thinking, what the heck, the Minnesota Twins? And it was also surprising because it was only a 3-year deal. We were expecting Carlos Correa to get a long-term deal, maybe 10, 11 years, something like that. And there were teams out there where he was having those discussions with. You had the Chicago Cubs at one point. The Detroit Tigers made an offer for 10 years, $275 million. Late in the game, it was looking like maybe the Orioles could have made a run for Carlos Correa, but in the end, ended up taking the short deal with the opt-out because, hey, why not? Go play for the Minnesota Twins for a year. I didn't get the deal I was looking for. I'm going to get paid quite a good amount of money this year. I can just opt out and go back out into the market for this offseason. So, Carlos Correa, taking a look at the numbers before I dive into my 5 teams where I think he most likely could end up. Take a look at these numbers. Once again, a solid season for Carlos Correa. Did miss some time, but hey, lately in the last couple of years, he's been able to get onto the field pretty consistently overall, compared to, what he was doing in 2019, 2018, 2017. He was missing a lot of time, but over the last couple of years, he has been playing more overall and pretty solid numbers this year, hitting 286, a 363 on base, a 461 slugging, a 137 WRC plus, 21 homers, 61 RBIs, still playing a really solid defense. Overall, according to Fangraph WAR, he is the 9th overall, or the 9th best overall shortstop in Major League Baseball. You got some other guys that are going to be free agents here as well. Trey Turner, Dansby Swanson, Xander Bogaerts. So it's going to be an interesting shortstop market. But for this video, I'm focusing on Carlos Correa, and I'm going to go over my top 5 teams where I think he will most likely end up. Let's go talk about the first team. The first team that I'm going to consider are the Philadelphia Phillies. Man, oh man, they're having a tough time lately. They've been just losing a whole bunch of games, and now the Brewers are gaining on them in the wild card race. But let's talk about the offseason here. The Phillies overall this year, 19th overall in shortstop production, barely getting any offense, negative 18 offense this year, but they are getting some pretty good defense, an 8.3 defense. That's pretty solid overall. As of right now, you got Bryson Stott there. Bryson Stott this year, he has been playing shortstop and second base. You had Didi Gregorius as well, but they ended up cutting ties with him. Bryson Stott, I get it, 24 years old in his rookie season. He's not having the greatest rookie season here, hitting 225 with a 287 on base, 341 slugging, 9 homers, 44 RBIs, 9 stolen bases. Not bad overall, but you could have Bryson Stott move over to second base. You got Gene Segura, who could be a free agent as well. They could buy out his contract if they decide to not bring him back. So you could go with a Bryson Stott at second base, and then you could have Carlos Correa plug in at shortstop. The only thing that kind of makes me hesitate a little bit is you already just have so much on this payroll, but you do have a lot coming off. So that is one thing to consider. You got Noah Syndergaard, who's, you're not paying him, his full salary for this year, but he's going to end up coming off the books. Knebel is going to be coming off the books. Kyle Gibson, Brad Hand, David Robertson as well. So you are having some money come off here. So could you end up going the route of a Carlos Correa? You are going to have some big contracts here. Bryce Harper, Zach Wheeler, JT Realmuto. And you also just paid Nick Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber last offseason. Is this the route they want to go? I don't see why not. I think of the Phillies, if you want to throw some money at a guy, why not? Go for it. And Carlos Correa, that would bring you some long-term stability at the shortstop position. Bryson Stott, he can end up being, playing second base. I definitely like the Phillies as a possible option for Carlos Correa. Especially with how this year is going so far, with how sluggish they have been going down the stretch. Carlos Correa doesn't sound too bad for them as of right now, but I definitely think they'll go after him this offseason. Up next, I have the San Francisco Giants. The San Francisco Giants this year, a pretty disappointing year, especially after the year they had last year. But San Francisco this year, one position that has really failed them is the shortstop position. Brandon Crawford has not had a great season this year. If you take a look here, 23rd overall in shortstop production. Not a lot of offense, negative 12.8, but good defense. So at least you have that going for you. But with the San Francisco Giants, Brandon Crawford, he's almost 36 years old here. He's got one more year left on that deal. I know people in San Francisco love Brandon Crawford, but could you maybe move Brandon Crawford maybe to second base or something like that? I mean, if you have a chance to bring in someone like a Carlos Correa, I think that would really be a game changer for your lineup. And with the San Francisco Giants, they're looking to spend some money this offseason. They're more linked to Aaron Judge. I think that's the route they should go, because I think you can work this out in the infield. You could, stick with Brandon Crawford at short, maybe go with someone else, at another position. But I think Aaron Judge is more of the target for the San Francisco Giants. But if that doesn't work out, hey, why not go after Carlos Correa? I think he would be a big help for this organization. Up next, I have the Minnesota Twins. Why not just stay right where you are? He's had a good season in Minnesota. And honestly, the Twins were looking really good until they started just having a whole bunch of injuries. The depth of the organization really showed. And in the end, the Cleveland Guardians, they just had way more depth in this organization, and they ended up winning the American League Central. But the Twins, they were looking really good there for a little while. I just think in the end, the injuries, like I mentioned, I just don't think they had enough pitching, and you had guys in the offense as well go down. But Minnesota was a pretty solid team there, and Carlos Correa looked pretty comfortable there. I don't see what the problem would be going back to Minnesota. Now the question is, would Minnesota want to offer that long-term kind of money, a 10-year, $300+ million contract? I don't know about that, but I definitely think the Twins, he's had a good season there. It seems like he's enjoyed his time there. So I'm definitely going to give them a chance. I don't see why not. And hey, for the Twins, you get it. You're having a shortstop long term. Now, I know you do have Royce Lewis. That is one thing where I do wonder if they would aggressively pursue bringing Carlos Correa back. Because Royce Lewis, when he came up this year, he was doing really well until he got hurt. So it's going to be an interesting question, whether or not the Twins go after Correa. I'd probably go 50-50 at this point. I'm not really sure which route they would go. I mean, hey, they shocked all of us last offseason by simply going after Correa, even if it was just a short-term deal. So I'll definitely give the Twins a chance to keep him at home. At number 2, I have the Chicago Cubs. You're probably thinking here, the Chicago Cubs, they have Nico Hoerner. He's had a really good season this year, but let's take a look at the numbers. Looking at the Fangraph leaderboards here when it comes to shortstop production, the Cubs, 10th overall. Really good defense from Nico Hoerner this year, and he's actually been pretty good with the bat. But if you take a look here, -1 offense from the shortstop position. Now, I love Nico Hoerner. He's had a breakout year, hitting .285 with a .331 on base. However, when you're taking a look at bringing some run production to this lineup, hitting .411, 9 homers. Now, I think if you have a chance to bring in someone like a Carlos Correa who can hit for power, drive in runs, I say you got to go for it. Nico Hoerner, you can move him to other positions. He has played elsewhere. It would be a shame for him to move off of shortstop because he has been so good at the shortstop position this year, one of the better defenders at shortstop this year. So could you move him to second base? Well, then what would you do with Nick Madrigal? Could you move him to the outfield? You do have the designated hitter option where you could rotate guys in and out. Maybe someone could play third. I don't know. With the Cubs, the point that I'm trying to make here is you do have some flexibility, and the Cubs, they're looking to make some moves this offseason. They were going after Correa last offseason, so I definitely think they're going to revisit these talks. The Cubs, hey, they're looking to get back into contention sooner rather than later. If you go look at the offseason they had last year, bringing in Seiya Suzuki, bringing in Marcus Stroman, they're not sitting here wanting to go through another rebuild. I think they're going to go after Carlos Correa. But the number 1 team that I think is the best fit for Carlos Correa are the Baltimore Orioles. They made a run at Carlos Correa last offseason. It was a little more on the hush-hush. It wasn't really out there. You started seeing some reports from other websites that, maybe didn't have a lot of credibility, but it was interesting that the story was out there. Then all of a sudden, Ken Rosenthal picked up on it at one point, and then in the end, he ended up just going to the Twins. But I think the Orioles are going to go crazy for this guy. I think they're going to offer him a long-term deal. The word was last year they offered him over 10 years and over $300 million. I think they are the best fit for him, and it just makes a lot of sense. If you go take a look here with Baltimore, as of right now, Jorge Mateo is your shortstop, and he's had a decent season this year, a 2.6 Fangraph WAR. But, we're looking at the slash line, 221, 266 with the on base, a 383 slugging, 13 homers. He's played great defense. That is definitely a big part of Jorge Mateo's game. But the Baltimore Orioles this year, what they have done this year, getting ahead of schedule of their rebuild. I mean, no one saw the Orioles doing what they did this year. Now, they're not going to be making the playoffs. Well, I think they're still in contention at this point. I don't think they're going to end up making it. But the Orioles, 80-76. Fangraphs didn't even have them getting more than 65 wins this year. So the fact they're already at 80, I mean, that is just incredible. And look at the young team, full of talent here. Why would Carlos Correa not want to go here? You got Cedric Mullins, you have Adley Rutschman, Anthony Santander, Ryan Mountcastle, Gunnar Henderson came up this year, Austin Hayes. This is a really solid lineup. I definitely think they need to add some pitching, but I think Carlos Correa is, yes, they have Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, and Cedric Mullins, star players for them. But someone like Carlos Correa is a guy that is just going to be the glue that holds it together. He's your long-term shortstop. He fits perfectly into this lineup. The Orioles have the money to spend. And then you also have the Mike Elias connection. He drafted Carlos Correa back in the day. I think it just makes a ton of sense. I don't see how any other team is a better fit than the Baltimore Orioles. But that's just my opinion. I think the Orioles, they're going to go very hard after this guy. So those are the teams that I think have the best shot for Carlos Correa. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Do you think any other teams have a good shot at Correa? Let me know. But that's all I have for right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.